Good morning, class. Today I wanted to do a mini lecture on something that doesn't have to do with entrepreneurship, but it is actually incredibly important, not just for the class, but in general for your career. So let's back up for a minute and let's just think about the MBA title that you will be earning and the expectations that employers will have of you as an MBA graduate. And what you have in your screen is what employers say that they would expect from an MBA graduate. And so, as your professor, I would love for you to be able to shine in all of these. Because the class is online, the ones that are more pertinent would be the first three. Number one, the data analysis and interpretation skills. This is something that I wanted to talk to you because I saw some potential areas of improvement. And so this is what I wanted to talk to you about. So let's go and take a look at what I found on exam 2. To begin with, what I will talk about regarding exam 2 is in general, right? There might be people that this doesn't apply to, but there might be students that this applies to. So if you are some of the ones that this applies to, then hopefully this will be helpful. And I think in general it will be helpful to everyone. So as you know, I worked for a long time in the corporate world, and what we saw in the last screen is absolutely 100% true. Whenever I would have MBA graduates or graduates, business graduates in general, what I saw that was missing or that people could actually work on to strengthen was critical thinking and really improving insights and strategic analysis. So I spent a lot of time with my employees, giving them opportunities to practice this because this is like a sport, right? The more you do it, the easier it gets. So that's why instead of giving you an exam where you would have multiple choice or you would be able to tell me the answer to question A or question B and so on, I created a scenario-based exam. Why? So that you could practice the skills that I'm talking about. And the results that I saw were mixed. Some of you did really well. Some of you did well in some and not as well on others. And I'll clarify with an example what I mean. But I saw a lot of book answers. So what I was wanting to avoid by not giving you the fill in the blank or the multiple choice was book answers. I know you can go get the answers from the book. So, it is part of what you're learning, right? But I think you guys are so smart that you're ready to go to the next level, which is what do I do with the book answers? And in general, I will say that many of the questions or many of the answers rather didn't go far enough. In essence, when you're answering a question, you need to think from A to Z. And I will explain that in a little bit. So what is critical thinking? So critical thinking is reasoning, right? In one word. But exactly how? And this is where we come to a model called systems thinking, meaning you have to think about a situation from many different perspectives. And so if you take a look at this graph, you can see that number one is the problematic situation, right? The scenario that we have. Number two is where you would get into the rich picture. This is where you would grab a notebook and start making notes as to who do I have here? Who are the actors in this situation? What do they want? That's from A to Z because you're starting from point A. This is what I have. This is my situation. These are the parameters, and this is my ultimate goal, Z. How do I get from A to Z? Then you get into the root definitions, and that is the concepts that you guys are learning in the class. So, for example, you might talk about how to do a global expansion and the different ways that you could do that, right? But then you have to go into the conceptual models and think about, okay, so if I do this, that the book is saying as a possibility, versus I do this other thing that the book is saying is a different possibility, these are two ways that could get me to Z. But now let's think about it in the real world, and let's think back to my actors. Does that work? Why or why not? And then you say, well, this could work, this solution could work if I make these changes, if I suggest this. And then you propose your solution or your recommendation. So that is what I would call thinking from A to Z. I will give you an example in a little bit. But before I do that, so when you go to a root definition, like I said, you can go to your book, you can go to the mini lectures and talk about the concepts that we learned. You could also go to AI, which you shouldn't, right? Because that's one of the things that we said not to do, because that is included in the academic dishonesty statement in our syllabus. But even if you went ahead and did that, the only thing that going to AI or a book or the internet will get you is number 3. So that's where you would stop. And I saw that in some questions, that's where the answer stopped. It didn't consider the rest. It didn't consider 4, 5, 6, or 7. Or maybe it went from 3 to 7. There is also another issue with just going and grabbing an answer from wherever it may be. And like I said, number 1 is that it addresses concepts, but it's only a start. It doesn't take the real world into account, like who is actually doing this. The other thing that I saw was that the answers that included everything. So in this situation, you could do A, B, C, D, E, F, G. That's kind of like saying, okay, well, let me just throw the spaghetti to the ceiling and see what sticks, right? And again, that is sticking with the root definitions. That's sticking with the concepts, with the book answers. It's not going through to the actual situation. And that is where your value comes in as an MBA graduate. Also, if anyone is using a copy-paste from the internet or from a chatbot, it's really easy to see what is generated from the internet or a chatbot or a book, because the language is different. You use different words to express those concepts. Also, just as a side note, if any of you would be tempted to use AI, be really careful with that, because AI is fed the entire knowledge of the world, right? So AI has read all of the articles that were written, nearly all of the articles that were written. So because of that, when it's putting together your answer that you asked, what it'll do is it will pull from the input that it had. And when it does that, it creates a next problem, which is plagiarism, because it will be using things that it has pulled from articles that it has read or that are part of its database. And so if a scan is run against your answer, it may find that you have a certain % of plagiarism, because some of those statements that AI will use are copies from what's out there, from the knowledge of the world. The other thing is AI is advanced. However, it's not to the point where it understands the real world just yet. It might change in the next couple of years and it might get there, but it's not there yet. So it doesn't take into account some things from the real world. And that's where you come in to see, okay, let me think through these possibilities and let me reason through them and see what works. Also, it doesn't explain your thinking. What are you actually thinking? Like, what is your reasoning for proposing these solutions? And like I said before, it doesn't use your language. All in all, what I'm trying to say is that sources, whether that be AI or a book or the internet, they can all help you start. But what we need to practice is your actual thinking, your critical thinking, going through that picture that I showed you, that figure that I showed you earlier. And then you need to synthesize what you know about the world. So at the end of the day, your answer may not be fully complete. So it may not include all the spaghetti, but it will make sense. It will be appropriate to the situation. And before we go on, as a reminder, using any source, whether that be chatbots or books or internet, make sure that you give credit. And the most important is this last statement. And it says, take the time to reflect on your findings so that you can come up with your own conclusion. Okay? That's part of our academic dishonesty statement. So let's take a look at an example. This was an example from the exam, right? It says your clients are a fitness instructor and a yoga mindfulness instructor. They've been friends for 10 years, they're planning to collaborate, and they need to put together a partnership agreement. What should be included in a partnership agreement? Okay, so let's say that I go to the internet and I do a search for starting a partnership. Well, I can find something on the internet. It's right there. And I strongly discourage you from doing any copy paste. If I grab this and I do copy paste, it may not be appropriate. Well, number one, it would be plagiarism, right? Or if you went ahead and put it in quotations mark and you cited it, okay, that would be a start, but you're not going to Z. In order to go from A to Z, you have to take this and think about the situation. What applies to my situation? Let's say that I go to AI. I put in there and AI tells me, oh, you should think about this. Still, it doesn't tell me, it doesn't go the entire way. Or I go to another chatbot and I do the partnership agreement. I did this before to show you. It will tell me. It'll tell me what to do, right? In this specific format. Okay? As you can tell, just by looking at this, I could tell that this is from AI. And look, it's throwing the entire spaghetti to the ceiling. Do this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and so on. Does all of this apply to my situation? Perhaps not. Let's look at the actual example. It says that they are friends for 10 years. So there are things that you have to highlight in here because they're friends and the last thing that they want is to destroy that friendship. They're saying that one of them is a fitness instructor, the other one is a yoga mindfulness instructor. So let's say that you copy pasted from somewhere and it says, oh, they have to define the roles and responsibilities. Okay, so what specifically about the roles and responsibilities? So in this case, you will have to say, Anna is the yoga instructor and the mindfulness instructor, and Zoe is the fitness instructor, and each of them will only do what they have, what has to do with the area that they teach. And Anna will be the one who runs the credit cards, and Zoe will be the person who does the marketing and so on. So you have to actually think about it and apply it to the situation. Then another suggestion from AI or from the internet is say how much each person was going to be allocated of the profits depending on their contribution. So again, if you don't know enough about the scenario, then you have to make assumptions. And so you would need to tell me, I would recommend if each of them is giving a 50% contribution to be given a 50% of the earnings. Okay, but what happens if there are more fitness classes than yoga classes? What happens then? And when you start going into those scenarios, that lets me know that you have actually thought about the scenario. If you haven't thought about the actual scenario of the two friends doing this, then your answer is incomplete. You haven't gone through Z. Okay? Let's take a look at some of the other questions. All right, let's take a look at question 3. This is about the local bakery. If you say that she should do online delivery using what? So perhaps you say, okay, yeah, she should use Uber Eats. Okay, in that case, find out what's available. Uber Eats, Favor, and so on. Figure out which one is better and then recommend one to her. She should do social media. She should actually advertise in Facebook, Twitter, TikTok. Okay, so do you think that she is going to do this if she only has done a grand opening? So what is preventing her from doing this? Maybe she doesn't know, right? So perhaps what you would need to do is recommend that she hire somebody so that this person does this. Or perhaps you sign her up for an account where she creates one post and it will be posted somewhere else, or it'll be posted everywhere else. So in other words, you have to customize your solution for the person. Let's take a look at another one. Your client has developed a luxury wristwatch from recycled materials. Okay? They're stuck on pricing. Describe a pricing strategy. Okay, so again, I saw that a lot of answers that had the book answer, right? Work on the value pricing strategy, blah, blah, blah. But think about the actual situation, right? Perhaps what you needed to do is do a quadrant to figure out, okay, where do I want this to be placed in the marketplace? If it's luxury, what is it going to be akin to? Oh, it should be like Cartier. Well, then perhaps I would recommend that this would be the pricing and then give your reasoning for the pricing, and one of you did that. So good job to you. And then I would recommend that this person go and talk to buyers from Neiman Marcus, because that's where the luxury wristwatches are, right? So you're not going to take it to Walmart for your distribution channel, right? Let's take a look at another. Your clients are a mother and daughter duo who turned their love for natural organic skincare into a business that is doing really well in the domestic market. They offer organic skincare and they want to go global. So many of you gave me answers as to there are direct channels of distribution, indirect, they could do this and that, blah, blah, blah. All of the list of the things that they could do. And then you told me that perhaps they should do XYZ. Okay, let's assume that you said that they should open stores. Okay, but where? They want to go global. So are you suggesting that they open retail stores in the entire world? Okay, you might say, well, I don't have enough information about this. Then in that case, make assumptions, right? Make assumptions and say, okay, well, they are going first to Europe because they love organic there, right? And specifically where in Europe? Oh, they could go to Paris and they could open a store in the Champs-Élysées. Well, is that realistic? Because they are a mother and daughter duo. There's only 2 people working on this. No, well, they could work on hiring a reseller. Okay, find a reseller, right? So do you see what I mean? You have to take it all the way to Z. Now, if you look at the question, you might say, wait, you didn't say make a recommendation. Always make a recommendation. If you have 2 recommendations, make 2 recommendations and say, these are the 2 options and I would recommend this. Okay, let's look at one more. Okay, here's this one that talks about people that have baby clothes and explain the importance of customer feedback. Propose 3 methods. Okay, and so the methods that I proposed are customer surveys and direct observation and this and that. Okay, that's from a book, right? So how would you actually go about getting those customers, right? So how could you have taken it one more step to be closer to Z for your clients? So perhaps you could have said, we could gather customer feedback, or we could do a focus group that we could gather moms from a forum that is called San Antonio Moms that is on Facebook. You see? So I'm going to stop here. Hopefully you are able to get the idea of what I'm trying to tell you. For the next exam, which is actually this week, I'm going to create some scenarios and I'm going to ask you to practice this, the systems thinking, okay? So I'm going to ask you to don't just give me book answers, make sure that you actually think through the scenario. And if you don't have all of the information that you need, make assumptions, right? Hopefully that helps. I know that this is going to help you a lot in the real world. And this is the place to make mistakes, right? If your answer is not as full as it could be, it's okay. This is a class. It's not the real world yet. Okay? So do your best. I want to hear your voice in your answers. It shouldn't sound like a book. It shouldn't sound like a Wikipedia copy paste or like a chatbot answer. It needs to be you actually reasoning through all of this and picking out some of the things that make your clients unique, so that their solutions that the solutions that you're proposing are also unique to your clients. Take it from A to Z. All right. Well, guys, I hope that this helped. Hopefully you don't think that I'm super picky. My intention is to get you to be the best MBA graduates as possible. All right. If you guys have any questions, let me know. Until next time, bye.